You will tell me certain things, but at that point, like, and you know Marcel, we've had conversations about Marcel and his line and his ass misleading and all this kind of shit. And you ain't never stepped up not one time and be like, hey Marcel, chill out, man. Like, I've known you to be a motherfucking liar. You've known him to be a liar. And it's like, sometimes like, you know, even if Marcel is almost like they might be ganging up on me at times in conversation. You ain't stepped up not one time.
Oh, you're a liar now. I won't let MLK come in and just totally dominate the situation. No. I have stepped in.
Oh, you have?
Even when we was out here, out back.
Okay, I guess I'd be so mad because I know when I get up so upset, I don't be seeing shit.
You black the hell out.
Bro, I can't do that shit.
I ain't say crash out.
Shit.
Y'all, I mean, come on, bro. Y'all do some heavy shit, and it's been like the whole time. It's like
So, I mean, I don't. But whatever his issue is, bro, it need to be just put out. Whatever his issues is, I don't know. Whatever his issues are, I don't know.
Martell and Chris sat down in a tense conversation that immediately made it clear how much history and frustration was building up between them. Martell started out by expressing something he has been holding in for a long time. He said, "You keep lying on me, and if that keeps happening, I'm going to put the truth out there on you." That statement set the tone. It showed that Martell was no longer willing to sit back quietly while he felt people were spreading lies or twisting things about him. He wanted to make it known that if anyone, even someone he once trusted, tried to paint a false story about him, he would defend himself with the truth. That kind of energy created the mood for the rest of the exchange. From the beginning, it became clear that this was not just a simple back and forth. It was a conversation full of old wounds, loyalty being questioned, and the weight of unspoken expectations. Martell highlighted how frustrating it has been because both sides keep saying the same thing. He said Chris claims he is telling the truth while calling Martell a liar, and then Martell insists that he himself is telling the truth and that Chris is the one lying. To Martell, this cycle has gone on for too long. He pointed out how Chris's story changes, shifting from moment to moment, while Martell's version of events has always stayed the same. For him, the truth never changes, and that is why he stands firm in what he says. What really bothered Martell was not just about being called a liar or hearing different stories. It was about loyalty. He reminded Chris that over the years, Chris had been a witness to so much between him and Marceau. Martell believed that Chris had seen enough to know who was really lying and who was not. Martell admitted that yes, sometimes Chris came back and told him certain things about Marceau, but when it mattered most, Chris never really stepped up. He said Chris never once stood up to Marceau and said, "Chill out, man, I know you're lying." That lack of open support is what cut Martell deeply. In his eyes, Chris had the chance to stand for truth and for friendship, but he stayed silent. As Martell laid this out, it was not just about small arguments. He described how Marceau has had a long pattern of misleading people, lying, and creating problems. According to Martell, Chris knew all of this but stayed quiet. That silence, for Martell, felt like betrayal. It made him feel like he was often left alone to defend himself, even when someone who knew the truth was standing right there. He even explained how, in conversations with Marceau and sometimes with Maurice involved, it often felt like they were ganging up on him. And in those moments, Chris still never stepped in. To Martell, that was the proof that Chris didn't step up as a friend should have. Chris, on the other hand, was not about to sit there and take all the blame without speaking up. He quickly pushed back and said, "Oh, you're lying now." He insisted that he had stepped in at times. He reminded Martell that even in situations when they were all out back talking, he did not just sit silent. He said he has told Marceau and Maurice when things went too far. He explained that he did not allow anyone, whether it was Marceau or anyone else, to just dominate the situation without speaking up. Chris was trying to show Martell that maybe he didn't see everything, but he was not completely absent in those heated moments. Still, Martell did not seem convinced. He stressed again how angry and frustrated these situations have made him. He admitted that sometimes, when things went too far, he blacked out from being so mad. That anger came from the feeling of being left without backup, of always being the one attacked while others either stayed quiet or joined in. Martell wasn't asking Chris to fight or crash out, as he put it. He was just asking for him to speak up when lies were being told, especially since Chris himself knew the truth. The conversation between the two men started to reveal how complicated these friendships have become. Years of history, arguments, business dealings, and personal drama all mixed together made it hard to separate one problem from another. Martell wanted Chris to admit that Marceau had lied and that those lies had gone unchecked for too long. He wanted Chris to admit that silence can sometimes be just as hurtful as direct betrayal. For Martell, being left without defense when surrounded by people who were against him was almost like Chris choosing a side, even if Chris did not mean it that way. Chris, meanwhile, was trying to explain that the situation was not so simple. He said that he had stepped in, but that Martell probably didn't notice or didn't take it the way he meant it. He also tried to remind Martell that he wasn't trying to control everything or take over arguments. Instead, he saw himself as someone who tried to calm things down instead of making them worse. To Chris, speaking up in his own way should have counted, but Martell clearly wanted something more direct. As their voices went back and forth, the conversation revealed just how much damage has been done in these friendships. Martell repeatedly came back to the same point: truth does not change. Lies can shift, they can be retold in different ways, but the truth always stays the same. And in his eyes, that was the foundation of his argument. He wanted Chris to admit that the truth was on his side and that Marceau had been the one constantly misleading people. For Martell, this wasn't just about one argument or one situation. It was about a pattern that had gone on for years. The weight of loyalty kept coming up again and again. Martell felt that a true friend should not let someone else sit there and be attacked with lies, especially if that friend already knows the truth. He didn't want Chris to go into battle for him or start unnecessary fights, but he did want Chris to use his voice. Silence, in his eyes, was almost like taking the side of the liar. And that silence was what cut Martell deeper than anything else. Chris, though, tried to explain that he didn't see things that way. He admitted that sometimes things went too far and that he had told people to chill out. He didn't want Martell to feel like he was being ganged up on, but at the same time, he didn't see it as his job to fix every single argument. He was caught in the middle, trying to balance friendships with people who were already at odds. But to Martell, that middle ground was not enough. Martell needed clear, undeniable support when the lies became too heavy. The conversation reached a point where Chris admitted he didn't even fully know what Martell's issues were anymore. He said, "Whatever his issues are, I don't know." That statement showed just how much disconnect there was. Martell felt the issues were crystal clear: lies, lack of loyalty, and silence when the truth needed to be spoken. But Chris seemed almost confused about why Martell was holding on to so much anger toward him. That misunderstanding itself revealed how far apart the two men had grown. The scene between Martell and Chris was not just about this one argument. It reflected the bigger picture of relationships in the group. Loyalty, truth, betrayal, and silence have been themes running through their friendships for years. Martell has always been outspoken, always demanding that people be honest and straightforward, even when it causes drama. Chris has been more reserved, trying to balance and calm things instead of jumping in with full force. That difference in how they handle conflict has now created a huge divide between them. The conversation also highlighted how much pressure comes from being surrounded by others who are quick to argue or quick to twist stories. Martell felt like he was constantly under attack from Marceau and sometimes Maurice, while Chris stayed quiet. To Martell, that silence was proof of disloyalty. But to Chris, it was just his way of handling things without making the situation worse. This difference in how they saw things is exactly why they clashed so hard in this moment. It's clear that Martell wanted Chris to acknowledge his pain, to admit that he should have spoken up more, and to recognize the damage silence can do in friendships. Chris, on the other hand, wanted Martell to see that he wasn't trying to betray him but was instead trying to avoid escalating already heated arguments. This clash of expectations has left both men frustrated and unable to see eye to eye. As the conversation wound down, there was no clear resolution. Martell still believed that truth never changes and that Chris should have stood by him more openly. Chris still believed that he had stepped in at times and that Martell was not recognizing those moments. The two men left the discussion still carrying the same frustrations, still holding on to the same disagreements, and still questioning the strength of their friendship. This moment between Martell and Chris showed just how fragile relationships can become when lies, silence, and loyalty are all tested over time. What might have started as small disagreements grew into bigger wounds because of unspoken expectations and different ways of handling conflict. Martell felt abandoned, while Chris felt misunderstood. And when those two feelings collide, it becomes almost impossible to find common ground.